day and welcome to The Pipeline. Today's October 15th, 2025. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. I'm joined by our usual gang of malcontents, Western Standard former opinion editor, Nigel Hannaford.
Never been more malcontented. Good to be here.
Headed off on Jihad tomorrow, I think, is Cory Morgan.
Yes, this is my last domestic appearance for a little while.
And Western Standard Senior BC columnist, Alise Mills.
Hi, guys.
All right. Well, Cory is going to the Holy Land at a very interesting time. Actually, is it tomorrow you're heading off?
Tomorrow morning, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, Cory's headed to Israel. Going to do some on-the-ground reporting for us there. Very interesting time for you to be going. We have the so-called peace deal ending. I don't know how many air quotes I'm going to have to do when we talk about this subject. But ending, for now, the war between Israel and Hamas. How long is it going to hold? And what's Palestine, Gaza, West Bank? What's it going to look like when this is done? We're going to chew it up. Speaking of getting chewed up, freedom in Canada looks to be headed in the same direction as the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom took a while, but it was finally conquered. It's now ruled by communists and Islamists, and you can't say anything that could hurt anyone's feelings online, and those laws are coming straight to Canada. But we're going to begin with immigration aggravation. Three big stories just in the last 24 hours on immigration in Canada. I mean, we used to go years without major immigration stories. Years where it was just wasn't a big issue, except for, I have to apologize, I guess, retroactively to people I used to call cranks. Maybe they were onto something. And I thought they were just total cranky and, curmudgeonly guys. And no, I guess I have to apologize in retrospect to some of these guys. Just in the last day or two here, we've got an Ontario judge having the sentence for a Jamaican cocaine smuggler because he would face deportation and wouldn't get his citizenship. We have to keep this career criminal in Canada. If we send him to jail, we're not going to be able to give citizenship to the career criminal. Citizenship and Immigration Canada just put out on social media an advertisement to the world that, hey guys, we got free healthcare in Canada, so come to our shores and use our precious tax dollars for our already massively overstrained and collapsed healthcare system. Comes at an interesting time because now Parliament, I think at the behest of Michelle Rempel, a committee in Parliament is going to be probing the link between immigration and strain on the Medicare system. So that's a lot to just spew at you, Alise.
That's okay. So let's start with what happened with the Ontario Justice, Robert Horton. He is one of many what I would call activist judges that are intervening with the criminal code or criminal law, but also putting their thumb on the scale of justice when it comes to immigration law. So the story of Roosevelt Rush, the cocaine dealing guy that you were just referring to, I'm sure his mother's very proud. He came to Canada at 19. And while it appears that he tried to have a few jobs, he suffered a back injury as he was a forklift driver. But subsequent to that, the back injury apparently didn't get too in the way of his criminal behavior, because he kicked up a pretty significant career in crime, trafficking fentanyl. He has firearm charges, and actually, while he appeared before Justice Horton on a cocaine charge, that stems from him being out on bail with a GPS monitor, roaming around Bellevue, selling cocaine. He's out on bail, selling cocaine, GPS monitor. The police suspected that he'd be a problem, so they were tracking him. So the sentencing that with Justice Horton that we're referring to is actually his second sentencing in a very short period of time. That first conviction of fentanyl and firearms, it was 6 years. And the second one is where Justice Horton gets involved and says, you know what, this poor guy, he suffered racial discrimination, systemic racism. It's hard. He had a back injury as a forklift operator. Not, failing to mention he's run from the police quite easily many times. But, he puts his finger on the scale and says, well, I can't give you the full 2-year sentence for trafficking 55 grams of cocaine. I'm going to cut it in half because I don't want you to get deported. Or he doesn't say it exactly like that. He says, I do not want your offenses to get in the way of your citizenship. Now, since Mr. Roosevelt Rush, the convicted criminal in this case, convicted drug trafficker, and interestingly enough, we're trying to get these guys out of the country. He didn't grow up in Canada. He didn't suffer systemic racism as a lad, as the justice tries to refer to. In fact, he arrived in Canada just before his 20th birthday. He's only 32 now. And in those 12 years, he spent a significant portion of his life as a criminal. So this is part of a smattering of justices from British Columbia, but mainly in Ontario, that think they need to intervene, put their thumb on the scale, and they've really become activists. And my question when we see these stories is, remember when we were all a very quaint little country and never wanted to see an elected judge or an elected senator? Because we were trying to avoid this sort of political ideology going into our courts or activism. But I think now we might have to look at how we're choosing our judges in a different way. And I think it brings us back to elected senators and possibly elected judges.
Nigel, I would think that a drug smuggler is exactly the kind of person we don't want as a citizen. Obviously, he cries systemic racism. Well, if it's so racist here, why are you here? Yeah. You obviously don't. If it's such a racist place and you're so hard done by, why don't you go back? This guy is a career criminal, and we now go out of our way to make sure that he's not just in prison, but that he could stay here for the rest of his life by becoming a citizen. This is ass backwards?
Well, maybe the health system isn't as good as in Jamaica where he came from, and therefore he has to stay here. I mean, I'm one of those cranky old bastards you were apologizing to.
I am sorry.
Yeah, and the trouble is that when I immigrated to this country more than 50 years ago, there was quite a long list of things that you had to be able to do. You had to be able to speak English properly. If you spoke French too, that was extra points. And you just went down the list. And in the end, they said, yeah, okay, you would be a good fit. And that's how they did it, because they wanted a certain type of person immigrating to Canada. Then in the 70s came the 80s came family reunification. And that was, I guess, good. You want to bring your dad over so that he can live with you in his dotage and so forth. And the standards kept changing and widening. So now you do have people who come here from other countries, bringing with them their bad habits, and somehow or other, the judges are prepared to make that kind of a judgment that the worst possible thing that we could do in the administration of Canadian justice is to send somebody back who had misbehaved and abused our hospitality. The system is crazy. There were people who saw it coming. They were mocked, derided as racists and various other nasty things. But, they were right.
Cory, I don't know if you're the camp where you owe people an apology or if you're owed an apology. I think, like me, you were pretty good on pretty open on immigration.
I'm still pro-immigration if it's done right. But people were raising the warning flags quite a while back. Mass immigration, that's the term that has to come in. I mean, everything in quantity. And we've had mass immigration for over a decade. And even most reasonable moderates now are admitting our system can't handle the amount coming in of people, whether it's healthcare, education, housing. We're getting pressured on all fronts. So I'm happy to see some of the other people admitting now that, okay, this is problematic. We got to do something about it. But I don't have much faith that we're going to do anything about it. If we can't even find the courage as a country to get rid of the coke dealers, how are we going to screen the semi-reasonable immigrants that we would have to turn away just to bring levels down to a manageable number. We don't have the courage as a nation to get rid of the other gentleman who was trying to hire a teenage prostitute. We couldn't get him out of the country either. So I fear people are realizing there's a problem, but this country is incapable of solving it, and that's problematic.
Well, this is what's going to radicalize people on immigration here. It's this kind of crap. I mentioned at the top of this segment, that just now, Immigration and Citizenship Canada putting out advertisements to the third world saying free healthcare. Immigration is supposed to be a trade between two parties. The person who gets to go to Canada, which is probably a richer and safer and nicer place than where they came from, so they get the benefit by it. But the host country should get to benefit by it. We're bringing in people that we need for some kind of job. They're going to pay into the tax base, especially when you've got an aging population, because we don't want to have kids anymore. And while they're here, they have to behave. They have to assimilate. They got to learn the language. They can practice their religion, but they can't stick it in our faces and denigrate the traditions of the host society. But we've lost any sense that we are even a host society. It's now this idea that, it's stolen land and everyone's an immigrant. No, the people who came here 150 years ago in Alberta and settled the frozen prairie, they were settlers. And settlers is not a dirty word. Those were hard sons of bitches that are doing stuff that almost none of us would be able to do today. And then subsequent waves came as immigrants, but now it's just an invasion. Now it's there seems to be no discernible benefit to the people here. And when we don't even keep track of millions of people who came here as temporary foreign workers or on phony student visas, the government knew were phony to begin with and let it happen anyway with a wink-wink deal. When we have known criminals and we go out of our way to keep them here and then give them citizenship, this is what turns people like me who believed in relatively open-ish migration, being opening to the world, bringing people here, it turns people like me into thinking we just need to stop it. And there's going to be a lot of good people who I actually would otherwise like to be here. But it's so wildly out of control that we just got to put a hard, bloody stop to it. Our politics on immigration is now poisoned, or becoming poisoned the way it has been in a little bit in the United States and is now in Europe right now, where something that was a good has become an existential threat to the host society.
Derek, you drew attention to that ad that they put out saying, come here, free healthcare. And if you object to that, straight away people think, well, you're being racist. Actually, there are a lot of people who came here under the old way, who worked hard, did well, are not white, who would feel exactly the same way.
Totally.
And so we've got to get past this idea that somehow the only people who object to mass immigration are people like us, like Alise.
Well, I think things have really changed. I actually saw a poll, and I wish I could pull the name of the polling company, because it's a great poll. It talks about the shift, and it speaks very much to what you're saying, Nigel, but it also speaks to what you're talking about, Derek, which is this idea of how do regular people that we've all sat next to at different times, how do they get quote unquote radicalized, or how do they become seething with anger? And you see them at these protests, they suddenly, something switches. What it is how we're looking at immigration. So number one, we have the highest rate of temporary Canadians in this country in our history. 7.2% of our population are temporary Canadians. That's 3 million people here. That's a number that has just shown up in a relatively short period of time. That's only 6 years it took to create that. Within that temporary status, you have the humanitarian claim support system that they refuse to turn anybody away. We just saw another story. I believe it was out of Saskatchewan, where a Nigerian family has been asked to leave because they came under false pretenses, claiming they needed political asylum, and they don't want to leave because their child has leukemia and they think Canada owes it to them. I do not want to see children die of leukemia, but it's not my responsibility to pick up your check. I am waiting 18 hours just to get antibiotics. The other thing is, I'd say that British Columbia, which people, and I will joke with you, is very left and not necessarily connected to important issues. There is seething anger about that IRCC post or Immigration Canada post. And I would say that from that poll, well over 65% of Canadians think this has gone too far. So when BC in this country is ground zero for the collapse of the greatest lie ever told, which is free healthcare, you're going to see very angry people. So I don't think we should discount it. I think things have shifted, Nigel. And I have to tell you, my parents immigrated to this country. I know exactly what those rules were. And I actually attended their citizenship ceremony when I was 8 years old. And I remember it very well. And it was something my parents reminded me that was a privilege, not a right to be Canadian.
Well, before we move on, this would be a good segue to the UK. I think that people have shifted, and they've shifted very decisively, very quickly. Whereas in Europe and in the United States, it built up to it more over time. Whereas in Canada, we had this overwhelming consensus on immigration. Anyone who talked about it was instantly denounced as a racist bigot, far out there. And then it turned around really quickly. But in places where it's been an issue for longer, the people have voted to end it, but it doesn't seem to end. So the UK, one of the biggest drivers behind Brexit was control over their own migration. And that was a damned important thing for them to do. It hasn't gotten any better after Brexit. Illegal aliens are showing up by the dinghy load in Britain every single day. It doesn't end. The United States appears to be uniquely able to stem it. Now, Poland and Hungary don't have this issue because they just never allowed it to happen to begin with. They kept borders in place their whole time, and they decided they don't want to go down the road of relativist multiculturalism. But the United States is at tremendous cost in several ways, trying to stem this. But it seems that no matter what people vote for, it doesn't change. Like the people of the UK voted for that. The people of Germany voted to end this. And they've still got a left-wing government that has totally open borders. The people of the UK voted to leave the European Union over, which is a much bigger decision than just putting a party in power. And the Conservatives continued to allow it to happen. So I just kind of leave it with that I'm not sure you can vote your way out of this kind of thing.
Well, you look at the numbers, though, that came out today. Look at the reform numbers. If an election was held in the United Kingdom today, Nigel Lafarge is going to rocket through. It is a huge surge, and Starmer should be very concerned. People are already writing his obituary, and
with that,
it might be sooner rather than later. I don't know.
I don't know, but it's in all likeliness probably 3 years away, and even then, I gotta wonder. People have voted to end this stuff before. They voted for Brexit. They voted for the Conservatives. All of it was supposed to fix it, and nothing has improved. And Cardi promised to fix it here. Obviously, it's not going to get fixed here. So anyway, this is a good, I think, segue into what's coming to Canada from the UK. I guess disastrous migration policy is one now. UK style, German style totalitarianism, where online hate speech as broadly as possibly defined. We're not talking guys with cranky opinions anymore, which I still don't think anyone should have ever faced criminal charge for. You should be allowed to spew whatever kind of cranky, nonsensical ideas you want in a free society, as long as you're not actively counseling the harm of an individual or group. But now the UK is throwing people in prison by the thousands for posting people saying online, I don't want my tax dollars going to migrants who are committing crimes. Okay, maybe you think that's an unpleasant thing to say, even if it's true. You might think that's an unpleasant thing to say, but people are going to prison for it there, And Nigel, you've written on this that this is now coming to Canada.
Right. So, I mean, you actually summarized the situation pretty much the way I was going to introduce the subject. You've had successive governments that have dropped the ball in controlling illegal immigration. And when people complain, instead of fixing the problems, the British government has been trying to fix the complainers, which they have done quite effectively. They actually started emptying out the jails of people who were put in there for actual crimes, pettier variety, but they're still crimes and they still merited jail time. They were getting those people out so that they could put the people who had expressed unpleasant opinions on the internet into the jails. And when they ran out of room in jails, they made a deal with, I think it was Lithuania, to ship some of our more belligerent free speech advocates to Lithuania. Maybe it was Latvia, but it was one of the Baltic states, to go to jail there. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, you say it's coming to Canada. Well, it's free speech has gone out the window. And we have a government here that doesn't want any trouble, so would people please shut up? Unless, of course, you are of the Palestinian persuasion, in which case you sort of stand back and wave your keffiyeh and your Palestinian flag. So, they have passed legislation putting the internet under the control of the CRTC. That was Bill C-11. That was done 2 years ago. And so was the Online News Act, which had the effect of taking news off Facebook. And then they tried to pass Bill C-69. And what Bill C-69 would have done, it died on the order paper before the election, but what it would have done is criminalize the kind of comments that people do make that are not racist, they are just expressions of disgust and contempt for the kind of government malfeasance that we're looking at. Now, it didn't pass. But now we find that they've only been back in office a few months, and they have Bill C-9, an act to amend the criminal code, which is basically back to internet censorship, even though the government says it isn't. Now, I want to quote Michael Geist here. Michael Geist is, an internet guru, somebody whose opinion I certainly, I look it up and then I write it down and pretend it's my own. So, he's a pretty credible source.
I plagiarize
We call that
time.
We call that research.
Yes.
And anyway, Michael Geist has raised significant concerns about the potential impact of the Combating Hate Act. That's what it's called, Bill C-9. The effect on fundamental rights and freedoms, particularly free speech. And his criticisms include the very vague definitions. He argues that the bill uses vaguely defined language and a lower threshold for hatred, which could lead to its misuse. Don't forget, these cases, if there are cases, end up before a Human Rights Commission where you don't have all the defenses of the criminal code. Instead, it's just, well, he said, well, he must be wrong then. Anyway, all of this gets used to misuse and stifle debate, and the lack of clarity around what constitutes hatred could make disagreement a crime if it offends somebody, and it shifts the standard from facts to feelings. And once you get into the area of feelings, I felt offended, so I'm due some compensation, and you, sir, should go to jail. That's what we've got in front of us. And now, of course, our own government said, no, they lie. We don't trust them.
Alise, Canada has never had quite the level of free speech as the United States, where, the Congress shall pass no act to restrict freedom of expression. Pretty friggin' clear. The only things you cannot do in the United States is defame someone. So you cannot lie about someone publicly and defame their character. Okay, that's pretty airtight. Well, its application might not be, but the idea of it at least is. And then in terms of hate, you cannot say, I want everyone to go outside Tuesday at 10 o'clock and kill someone from X group, because that is counseling a crime. That is conspiracy to commit a crime. You can't do that. But you can say, I hate X group. Y group is bad. They smell funny. You can do that. You can't even do those things in Canada, and I think you should. Those are unpleasant and impolite things to say, but in a free society, you should be able to say, "I don't like those people. Though those people over there eat funny food. And I don't like their soups. I don't like pho. I don't know who would say that, but it should be your God-given right to say, I hate
Those
pho.
people are bad.
You know,
Those people have
I know,
no taste.
I'm going pretty far. I'm going pretty far on pho.
No. You know what? I support I'm joining a new constituency, crotchety curmudgeons and their opinions. I'm slowly entering into that world, and I feel that we're better off with the crotchety curmudgeons. And young people listening to this may not think crotchety is the real word, but it is. So please use Google for something other than whatever you're doing. But you know, we all have it within us, and I think what I'm watching in the UK, first of all, when I first started to see it, I could not believe it. I thought maybe this is, this is media that's twisting and turning this, but this is just shocking. And the UK has become a laughing stock. It was once the bastion of free speech and literature and the greatest parts of our democracy. And look at it now. It's a shell of itself. And it's a good lesson for us, because this is what happens when government betrays its people. And in the UK, the betrayal and the lie started with the Conservatives, and it's only manifested itself. It's only increased itself with the Labour government. And when that type of deep-rooted betrayal begins, the citizenry has to have a way to fight back. And often the only way to fight back is to maintain your freedom of speech. And in Canada, that's freedom of expression. And we're seeing that being systematically cut down in the UK predominantly, but under Trudeau, they tried to tackle this beast several different times, several different ways. And Bill C-63, which is the original piece of legislation that has these, you can't say you hate your neighbor, you can't think about hating your neighbor. And you can't think about putting that on the internet, because we're going to go in for thought crimes. That to me was a sign that we had literally jumped the shark in this country. Thought crimes were now going to be penalized or litigated with serious consequences attached to them. So I think what I was saying in regards to the IRCC issue, which is Immigration Canada, talking about, hey, we have free healthcare. And I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it in regards to free speech, and I will defend everyone's right to speech. That I want people to fight. I want you to litigate this. I want you to stand on your corner and yell and talk and scream and do whatever you have to do to hold the line in this country. I would never have heard myself say that 5 years ago, gentlemen. You wouldn't. This is not the Alise from 5 years ago. When I see what's happening in this country, I want to litigate. I want to sue the government. The betrayals that our governments commit on us is unfathomable. I would not have imagined this 5 years ago. So fight for free speech. And to prove that point, say a lot of bad things that will offend a lot of bad people. You should be able to have the right to say it.
Yeah. Cory, I mean, that's been on my mind, is that I might, and I would hope many others would, intentionally commit hate crimes, even if we don't mean it. Like I'll start, I'll make comments about pho, and I'll continue to turn up the heat until I finally get charged or something. That it's going to have to be challenged. Now, one part of this is they want to ban symbols of hate. I don't think they mention anything by name except for the swastika or the swastika banner. But that's not been illegal in Canada. The only time I can ever recall one ever being flown in public in Canada, at least myself, was during the Freedom Convoy, when there was a masked individual who was later possibly identified as a Toronto Star employee. That person has denied that it was them, but I have not seen any definitive evidence, yes or no. But didn't make sense to be a Freedom Convoy person. But I mean, that is obviously a very strong symbol that evokes extremely strong feelings in people. But it is not, until this bill likely passes, been illegal to display it, because displaying a symbol doesn't hurt anyone. It might mean different things to different people. But and it's got a general meaning to it, obviously, but holding a flag up, no matter how offensive, like the hammer and sickle to me is extremely offensive. Many of my family were murdered under the hammer and sickle. It's extremely offensive to me, but I would not think that it should be illegal for someone to display it. I would have contempt for them, maybe even hate for someone who displays the hammer and sickle in a non-ironic way. But that's not been put under here. The hammer and sickle is not a banned hate symbol in this. The swastika is. Do you think it's reasonable to, as a part of this, to, in addition to just hurting feelings, going to jail, but banning, what is obviously to put it extremely mildly, a controversial symbol like the swastika? Should you go to jail for flying it?
No, and it's been legal to display that for, time immemorable in Canada. The reason we so rarely see it is the absolute correct and perfect reason, because most Canadians find the symbol repugnant and would not smile upon somebody displaying it, waving it, or showing it. So that drives it out of our public scroll just through societal change, through not accepting that ugliness being on display around ourselves. But when you get the law into it, now you martyr people. Now you drive it underground. Now you give the paranoid man, the hateful man or woman or whatever, more feeling and more reason to feel they are a victim. And it doesn't solve the problem with those very few disturbed people who want to wave symbols like that. It makes it worse. But it gives the government a lot more reign and leeway. And then where do you see, I know it's a lazy way to go, but slippery slope arguments have merit to them.
Damn
what other
right.
things are going to start getting
Right.
banned and symbols and going from there and intruding on them?
So to challenge this law, are you quiet?
I'm not going to fly to Tim. I suspect one of my monologues or any one of my posts on X might still get me afoul of the law, but I'm not going to go goose step into a swastika.
I can get away with it as someone from a German family, but you're a different background. You still can't get away with it, but you'd have a better time getting away with it than me.
I wouldn't want to have to keep explaining the context of.
Yeah. That's just going to be that photo is going to live with you forever. To be like, come on, I was protesting the totalitarians.
I'm certain we could find a way to challenge it. I think maybe not that one.
That's
Guys,
fair.
I just want to mention that a lot of what in the banning of the swastika, which is, I don't think something we even imagine that we'd have to do. I think part of this is a response to, I hate to say it, the mass immigration that is imported hate. And I'm happy to say that. If no one else is brave enough to say, I'm not suggesting you're not, we have imported hate into this country. So swastika is one thing, but what about flying the ISIS flag? And I'm leaving that open to the three of you to think about, because that to me is part of the criminal code. We should be able to capture that. The problem is, and in Vancouver, if you notice, Samadoun or whatever it's called, that terrorist organization is openly gathering here. VPD is not showing up. RCMP is not showing up. The city's not shutting it down. It's a terrorist organization. It's in the criminal code. You should be able to pick them all up. We have city councilors from Vancouver as guest speakers for a group of terrorists. Flying flags, we're not implementing the laws that we have. So what the bloody hell are we doing creating more?
Well, it's going to be selectively applied. I mean, I don't think I'll try to be consistent here. I don't think the ISIS flag should be illegal to be flown. Al Qaeda, I don't think was in the flag business so much, but whatever it is they use. No, I don't. Now, importing people who would want to fly these flags, keep them all out.
It's a nice identifier of the people we don't want.
Yeah, like you're advertising, deport me. So, like, you
got that Hezbollah flag in your carry-on luggage on the way in. You know what?
Yeah.
You can go back.
You're doing your job. You're help making. If we had a real immigration control system, they're helping do our jobs for us by flying those. We get rid of the people, but the flag itself shouldn't be illegal. If some dumbass white kid who grew up in the suburbs and is just yearning to struggle against something wants to go and fly the Hamas or the Hezbollah flag, it's disgusting. But they're a citizen. It's their God-given right to do disgusting and stupid things, as long as you're not actively committing an act of violence, a crime against a person.
Derek, I think when Cory said earlier, like, who even wants to fly the swastika?
No,
You
but
don't have to legislate against it. The reason that it is in there is to give them a talking point. If it was only the militant Islamist symbols that they had come down hard on,
Mhm.
then, well, you're anti-Islamic. Well, no, we won't.
But they
we won't
didn't
fight
name a
such-
single militant Islamist flag or symbol. They
No.
didn't. They named only one because
But
we've had enough Holly for a while.
It's a
actually
self-protection thing.
Yeah, like I
for
said,
the government.
we're going after Nazis.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think they're going to crack down on Hamas flags, Hezbollah
so.
flags, ISIS flags, that kind of thing. That'll be RBC is Islamophobic. That made up word. But if it was like a big list, I could see, okay, they're going to put that in to show it's not just picking on radical Islamists. But they didn't even put in any of the radical Islamist symbols. They just put in one. So I don't even think they're going to go after the radical Islamist symbols. But you know what? Left, keep this in mind, left. Whenever people legislate against freedom of expression, they never stop for a second to think it could be used against them. Just picture for 1 second lefties who like this bill that the conservatives come to power and they're going to put on this list the hammer and sickle or other socialist symbols. Or if we're going to have banned music, let's put Rage Against the Machine on there. It's a good sound, but it's crazy communist shit. No one ever stops to think that this attack on freedoms could ever be used against yourself. And when the left does it, they never think the right would do it. And when the right does it, it's less often. But when the right does it, they never stop to think that the left would use it against them too. And it's deserving when it's used against you.
In the saddle today and under the horse's heels tomorrow.
Yeah.
So true.
Wow, great segue again. Because we're going to talk peace in the Middle East. Bullshit. Okay. So, Cory, you're headed to do some journalism jihad tomorrow.
Yes.
Headed over. So, we won't... They've got the deal. The hostages, thank God, are all returned. There's some dispute over the remains of some murdered hostages. But, I mean, I can't imagine that'll spark a war for remains. God willing, that gets fixed here. I'm going to be really interested to see, what you come back with. The shooting war for now is over. Start up at any time again. Hezbollah as an organization has been smashed, but as an ideology, it's strong as it's ever been. Benjamin Netanyahu and his government have made clear it's their intention to annex the West Bank and do something with Gaza.
They've talked now about potentially backing off.
Trump said no.
Yeah.
Trump has said no, but I mean, he also said no to attacking Iran, and then they did it anyway.
I mean, the best I call right now is a pause in the Middle East. So at least the immediate, fighting.
Just in the I think it was in the last week. I'm not positive. There was one of the last remaining Christian villages in the West Bank was cleared out by settler attacks. Israeli settlers attacked it, drove out, and there's very few full Christian villages left in the West Bank. A Christian village was firebombed and attacked and drove everybody out, and then it was settled with new Israelis. That doesn't look like it's going to settle into any kind of, peaceful solution.
We're looking at the more immediate war, and that's Gaza. And I mean, if we want to look at the big picture, we need a few shows. For right now, the hostages, the living ones, are back. And that was the main impetus, at least for the ongoing current attacks. Any hawk or anybody else who wants to go further in Gaza, they don't have now the basis to stand on nearly as much to continue on with that effort right there. Hamas is still there. They're still armed. They're still empowered, but they're really kind of defanged for the time being. I mean, the area is rubble. Will it last? No, I doubt it. But it's a start. Something that's got to happen, and at least a little bit is the nice thing with Trump, and I don't see a lot of nice things with Trump. He is unpredictable. He is crazy. And that puts some fear into the likes of Hamas as well. Netanyahu, or, transfers from the States cut off to Israel would put some pressure on them as well, very heavily.
He'd ever do it.
Well, either way, we've got somebody who's got some leverage over that area more than has ever had. And we can hope for the best in the short term. What has to happen, I think, though, if we're going to talk about the mythical two-state solution, a third party has to manage the West Bank and Gaza. Because, look, they were given some autonomy 20-some years ago. What did they do? They dug tunnels and they collected rockets and got ready for October 7th. If they're left on their own again for 20 more years, and I don't think it'll even take that long, there's going to be another attack. But likewise, you can't have the IDF just sitting in there trying to maintain control the whole time, because that just leads to more bitterness as well. Somehow a third party has to try to maintain order in there, and that's easier said than done. It'll be interesting, though. I'm really looking forward to speaking to people there, because I want to talk to Israelis. I want to talk to, hopefully, as I said, I want to get to the east quarter of Jerusalem and actually talk to some Muslim people in Israel and hear some different points of view, because we're outside of it looking in, and it's a pretty complicated mess.
Okay, we don't have a lot. We got to be short with the remainder of our time here. I'll go to you first, Alise. A third party, I don't think would be totally accept that. That's not a two-state solution. That's maybe a 1.5, or is it a 3? I don't know. For this to work, Palestinians are going to have to. Well, we're going to try and solve the Middle East in 4 minutes. I see what we're doing here, but they're going to have to themselves. But every time they've governed themselves, they go absolutely ballistic, and we get this kind of thing. But that appears to be the argument that Netanyahu is then using to make the case for, population relocation, which I think is just polite terminology for ethnic cleansing. But this is a population that's proven itself, particularly the Islamic population in the West Bank and Gaza, has proven itself particularly willing to go to war for anything, and is not willing to accept a peaceful two-state solution. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. They won't accept the two-state solution, but Netanyahu seems to... That's the justification he gives for wanting to annex these territories.
Can I just say that we are, over the last 24 hours, I want everyone to understand that we are even further away, or maybe we've now been shown how far away we are from any sort of Palestinian state. Absolute chaos and murder has descended upon what is known as Palestine or Gaza. They've now turned on their own people. They're beheading them. They're killing them on the streets. They have revealed themselves to what they are in other places like Africa, but under different terms, like Boko Haram and all these other names that I cannot pronounce, but have been massacring Christians across the continent for several years now. And then those into parts of Eastern Europe, right? We forget about the what we now call Islamic terror, what we used to call, Muslim wars, right? What's happening in in Gaza is so horrific. I personally can't stomach it anymore. We know we can't get to a two-state, and President Trump said this morning, and I've been in sort of close contact with my Americans within Trump organization for the last several days. I don't think anyone expected that to become this, but that demonstrates how very little we understood the commitment Hamas had to maintaining control. I think we're going, as Trump said today, he's going to roll military in there if they don't drop their arms. And I suspect this is now going to become some sort of hybrid, what we used to call the blue helmet peacekeeping, but with American style. And I think some of the worst is yet to come still.
Yeah. The only thing I know is it's not done. It's
so far from it.
It's just another ceasefire.
I just hope they can cool it for about 10 days.
I mean, that'd be nice. I mean, I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take 10 days without
I don't think so.
Mass casualties.
Look at the war that broke out on the borders of India and Afghanistan today. That's this Islamic versus Islamic terrorist groups. This place is it's just a tinderbox. And I think President Trump is going to have to perform. And I'm pretty hawkish, but I didn't want to see any more military. I didn't want to see any more bombs getting dropped. But I think there's going to have to be some sort of deployment of boots on the ground. I think that was a fantasy land we were all living in. But to watch the assassinations on the street in Gaza. You can't continue to let that happen. They have no intent of letting their people go.
I don't know. If I were American, there's absolutely no way in hell I would agree to American boots on the ground being in harm's way for people overseas killing each other, and we'll never stop killing each other no matter what we do. No, I don't. We're just gonna have you're just gonna get the first in parting shots because we just don't have the time.
Sure.
So.
Well, I'll tell you that my parting shot is for Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasan-Gary, who is a
sorry. Say that again 3 times fast.
Anandasan-Gary.
Oh, well, okay.
I practiced in front of the mirror this morning. Anandasan-Gary. Gary. Anyway, look, total chump. You know, he's on the spot in the House answering questions. Where are the border security agents that you promised during the election to police the border to satisfy the Americans so that we don't have that particular acts against us in the tariff negotiations? I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? You're the public safety minister. It's not my job to hire these guys. This is a guy who is, this is the second strike. One more and he needs to be out.
Yeah. Alise.
Here. My parting shot, and I admit I'm doing this a little bit on the fly, but my parting shot is to Mark Carney. And it is in regards to all the things we were talking about today. It is not so much more of a drill down on him as sort of me pleading with him to follow through on his commitments, because this country, and I think you said it best, Derek, is that it's going to form radicalization. It is a tinderbox in Canada ready to go. And you can easily see when you break the backs of your citizenry and you take away their rights, their freedoms and their liberties and access to healthcare, access to good paying jobs, and then you force certain ideologies down on them, you are creating you're creating the breakdown of Canada. And I would suggest that instead of flouting around with his buddy Starmer, and can he just come back to Canada and deal with the issues that we are facing? He promised us that all we had to do was watch him and he would deliver. I don't know how many days we're in now, but I don't see one damn thing being delivered. I just see it getting worse and worse and worse. What's his plan?
Right.
Where are we going to? That's my last word.
All right, Cory. Parting shot before you head over to duck some shots.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Alberta's got the second best motto in North America after New Hampshire, and that's with strong and free in Alberta, and it's going on the license plates where it belongs.
Yay.
Difference with Pennsylvania is we mean it. I'm not so sure about those guys.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, yeah. It's live free or die.
Live free, it's theirs is better. But
well, I like it.
You can't actually. If you want the police to stop you, I had a live free or die t-shirt because I'd been in New Hampshire for the primaries. And I was actually stopped by a police officer saying that was inciting anger and all of the, yes. I actually had to call a lawyer and just to make sure, because I didn't get arrested, but I was warned. Somebody had seen me at the gas station and had complained.
Okay. Well, mine is for your good friend out there, David Eby. David Eby saying no pipeline from Alberta through BC. And then the greenies who don't understand how the Constitution works, they say Alberta's trying to have it both ways. Alberta wants more control and autonomy for itself, but then it wants Ottawa to impose pipelines here now. No, we want Alberta to govern itself within its provincial jurisdiction, and every province to govern itself within its provincial jurisdiction under the Constitution, and then Ottawa to do its job under its jurisdiction under the Constitution. And the infrastructure that crosses provincial boundaries is under strict federal jurisdiction. And that means a pipeline from Alberta through BC to the coast is federal jurisdiction. And this is David Eby trying to usurp federal jurisdiction. There's rightful federal jurisdiction. If this country means anything, it is that it can connect the different parts of it economically and socially. So if David Eby wants to play this game, nope, Alberta pipelines through BC, just be warned, the two can play this game. We could say no BC lumber trucks through Alberta. We could say no trains full of your goods coming through Alberta. if we're going to be usurping the Constitution and our areas of jurisdiction, if we're not going to act as a country, well, we can bloody do it too. And we can, most of our trade goes south, not to the west. We can hurt BC a lot more than it can hurt us. This is a game I don't want to play. I love BC, but goddamn, you got a dumb leader. All right. That's it for today. Cory, Alise, Nigel, thank you very much. Thank all of you for joining us today. Remember, we need you to support the Western Standard and the work we're doing. Our team of journalists from BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and beyond. Go to westernstandard.news right now. Click on subscribe. It's $10 a month or $100 a year for full access to all Western Standard content and take down the paywall for yourself. Thank you very much for joining us today. God bless.